And as a matter of fact, did you know that our very first show was banned from the air? That's because Wally and the Beaver go out and buy in the mail an alligator because their parents say they can't have a pet because they wouldn't be able to care for it. And so what did Wally and the Beaver do? We were going to put it in the toilet because we knew that alligators needed water. At that time, you not only couldn't show a toilet, you couldn't even show a bathroom on television. It was prohibited.
Television used to treat the average American bathroom like a state secret, which is part of what makes one early Leave It to Beaver story so funny in hindsight. This was the show people remember for neat lawns, polite children, and the calm voice of Ward Cleaver. Yet one of its earliest production battles centered on a toilet. Not a scandalous affair, not a violent scene, not some wild off-screen meltdown. Just two boys, a baby alligator, and a hiding place that network censors thought went too far for family television. What followed was a strange little fight between common sense and the rules of 1950s broadcasting, and it changed the order in which the series reached viewers. And while we're on the subject, if you ever saw this episode in reruns or grew up watching Leave It to Beaver, tell us in the comments whether you think CBS made the right call by refusing to air it at first. Captain Jack.
Do you think he's happy, Wally?
I don't know. With an alligator, it's hard to tell.
It sure is. Wally, you promised you'd help me with him. What do we do now?
Well, we could ask Dad, but I don't know if he'd want us to have an alligator, even a little one.
The episode at the center of the fuss was called Captain Jack, and it was originally meant to launch the series. In the story, Wally and Beaver order a Florida alligator after spotting an ad in a comic book, only to discover that the terrifying beast of their imagination is actually an 8-inch baby gator. That setup already sounds like classic Beaver trouble. It starts with childhood excitement, slides into bad judgment, and turns into a household secret that obviously cannot last. Once the boys learn the little reptile needs water, they have to figure out how to hide it from Ward and June. A sink is too obvious. A bathtub is risky. Their bedroom is hopeless. So they come up with the kind of plan only sitcom children could believe would work and decide to keep the alligator in the toilet tank, treating it like a miniature aquarium. The whole plot hangs on that one idea, which is exactly why the network's objection created such a mess. The problem was not that the story was unbelievable. Leave It to Beaver thrived on small domestic chaos. The problem was that television in 1957 had rules that now seem almost absurd. Bathrooms were considered off-limits, and toilets were even more taboo. Jerry Mathers later recalled that you could not even show a bathroom on television at the time, which made this harmless little reptile story much more controversial than anyone expected. So before America properly met the Cleavers, the show had already stumbled into a censorship fight. That says a lot about the era. Leave It to Beaver is still remembered as one of the cleanest family sitcoms ever made, yet the episode that nearly introduced the whole thing was considered too daring because of where an alligator was hiding. The network fight.
So they fought with the censors, and that was our very first show. And they said, well, they could show it in the back of the toilet tank. So that was some way that Leave It to Beaver actually set some precedents for the television industry. We were the first show to show a bathroom.
CBS standards and practices pushed back hard enough that the episode was shelved for a week. Instead of opening the series with Captain Jack, the network aired another episode first, while the producers worked through the dispute. That meant the episode shot as the first show was not the first one audiences actually saw. Beaver Gets Spelled ended up airing ahead of it. What made the dispute tricky was the bathroom setting was not some throwaway visual. It was essential to the plot. If the boys could not hide the alligator in the toilet tank, then the story stopped making sense. The producers couldn't just snip out a few seconds and move on. The entire comic engine of the episode depended on that secret spot in the bathroom. That forced a compromise. After the wrangling, CBS allowed the episode to air on one condition. Viewers could see the tank, but not the toilet itself. So the show managed to get by on camera angles and careful framing. In one brief moment, Wally places Captain Jack into the tank and closes the lid, but the rest of the fixture stays out of sight. It was a small visual adjustment, yet at the time, it made all the difference. That solution feels almost comically delicate now. A tank was acceptable, a full toilet was not. But television often moved forward in tiny, negotiated steps like that. Someone pushed, someone objected, and eventually a camera angle split the difference. Leave It to Beaver won the argument just enough to get the episode on the air. What viewers really saw. Over the years, the story's often been simplified into a catchy piece of trivia that Leave It to Beaver was the first American television show to show a toilet. That version is close enough to survive, but not exact. The more accurate claim is that the series showed part of a toilet, specifically the tank, and was among the earliest programs to bring any bathroom element into view in that way. Of course, the legend sounds bolder than the actual image. Viewers did not get some shocking full bathroom reveal. They got a carefully limited shot that allowed the story to function while respecting the network's limits. In other words, the scandal was not really what America saw. The scandal was that the show insisted on going near the subject at all. Still, even that partial image was enough to make television history. For audiences used to a scrubbed clean version of domestic life, the presence of a toilet tank hinted at a world that looked slightly more like a real house. That may sound minor, but old television often avoided ordinary details with surprising determination. Married couples could be separated into twin beds. Pregnancy could be tiptoed around. Bathrooms could vanish entirely. So the Beaver story became famous because it brushed against the invisible line of what could be shown in an American home on screen. The show didn't bulldoze the line, it nudged it, but in television history, nudges count too. The Cleaver Set.
All right, Captain Jack, back into your aquarium.
Part of what makes the episode memorable is how sharply it clashes with the show's reputation. This wasn't a series built on rebellion. Jerry Mathers described the atmosphere around the program as fun, friendly, and surprisingly straight-laced. He said Hugh Beaumont, who played Ward Cleaver, was a minister as well as an actor and helped keep everybody on the straight and narrow. Mathers also remembered the set as a place full of decent people who were not turning up hungover or out of control. That clean working environment matches what viewers felt when they watched the show. Leave It to Beaver had warmth, order, and a genteel sense of mischief, but not much edge, which is why the network fight over Captain Jack feels so deliciously out of proportion. There's also something fitting about Beaver being at the center of this little battle. Mathers was only 8 when he joined the series, and the show often mined comedy from the gap between childish logic and adult rules. In this case, the same thing happened behind the scenes. The boys thought hiding an alligator in a toilet tank was a clever plan. The adults in charge of television thought even showing this setup might be too much for America. That tension gives the episode its lasting charm. On screen, it's a harmless kid's scheme. Off-screen, it became a quiet skirmish over what television families were allowed to look like. The Cleavers may have seemed idealized, but this episode reminds us even the most polished sitcom families had to negotiate with the real world. After the tank.
I don't want no more of your racial jokes around here because I can't stand people who are always knocking minorities. What's the matter, my fly open?
Later, TV went much further. By 1971, All in the Family included the sound of a toilet flushing, which was considered another step forward. After that, bathrooms slowly became normal parts of TV space instead of forbidden zones just off camera. Captain Jack still gets remembered, not because it was outrageous, not because it changed television overnight, but because it revealed how nervous the medium once was. A baby alligator hidden in a toilet tank was enough to delay the debut of one of America's best-known sitcoms. That tells you a great deal about the time. Seen now, the whole thing is almost sweet. A show famous for innocence became part of TV history by forcing censors to think very hard about a bathroom fixture. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think the network was protecting family television, or do you think refusing to air this episode says more about how nervous TV used to be? Let us know in the comments section below.